So when it comes to anime, there are tons of really good short ones that range between 8 and 12 episodes, some of the more popular ones being No Game No Life, Death Parade, and Erased. Except all three of those have only 12 episodes. In fact, most of the animes in the episode range that I just said a minute ago only have 12 episodes. But recently I found what I would consider to be the best 10 episode anime that I've ever seen. Not that there's many to choose from. So before you start thinking of all the 10 episode animes you've seen and start realizing there really aren't that many, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you that the anime I think is the best 10 episode anime is Kyousougiga. Here's how it's spelled because I butchered it, I know. There are a couple of different adaptations for this one, but the one we're going to be focusing on in this video is the 10 episode TV season of the show, which I think is accepted as the most complete version. But if I'm wrong about that, please don't get mad at me. I'm just trying to tell you guys about a really cool anime I saw. So Kyousougiga is a very interesting and different anime, and as you can see by the cover of it, the art style is very colorful and pretty looking. This art style stays amazing throughout the entire anime, and is one of the reasons I started watching it in the first place. Obviously, something like art style is subjective, and you're probably already thinking of some other really short animes with great art styles like No Game No Life again. But the art style isn't the only thing carrying the anime's visual appeal, believe it or not. Obviously, art style is huge when it comes to visual appeal, but that aside, a lot of the backgrounds and scenery are just designed really well with the elements of this anime and the world constantly visually complementing each other. That might sound complicated, but just trust me when I say it helps a lot with the world building and immersion in this anime, which are both really well done. Also, I'm just gonna go ahead and let everyone know, I am not going to be spoiling this anime, but I will be talking about the first few episodes a little bit and showing off those episodes on screen, which really shouldn't reveal anything important, and like, how would I talk about the show without showing any of the episodes? So while the people in the comment section attempt to explain to me how I can show off this anime without showing a single episode, it's time to talk about the actual anime. And no, I'm not spoiling anything, relax. Kyousougiga starts off with this character by himself drawing pictures. He is a monk named Myu? I don't know, I'm not saying that name again, who could draw things to life. Eventually, the Buddha turned a black rabbit named Koto into human form, and she eventually ended up marrying the monk. They end up having 3 kids, Yakushimaru, who's a human, Kurama, who's a Buddha, and Yase, who's a demon. These guys will be more important later. But the high priest of the land they were living in decided that the monk's drawings caused too much trouble, so he was forced to take his family into his own creation called the Looking Glass City. They kinda just walk through a wall and then suddenly they're in this magical land where everything is really good and nothing can even break. It probably sounds like I'm explaining a lot of things really fast also, but you gotta remember, this is a 10 episode anime, so the pacing is going to be really fast. Pacing is something I talk about on this channel a lot, because for me personally, it's one of the most important things an anime needs to get right for me to enjoy it. I think while Kyousougiga is definitely fast-paced, I think it's just slow enough for you to be able to keep up with the story being told. I'm sure you can already tell, but this show is really crazy and unique, and the entire appeal of this show is being brought into this strange world with these interesting characters and just thinking, okay, what's even going on here? Usually in anime, when you don't know what's going on, it's a really bad thing, but in this show, it's not like what they show you is confusing, it's just that every time you see something new, you want to know more. Though it doesn't help that the first few episodes show a lot of backstory, but they do kind of have to for the show to make sense. After you learn about all of that, you start seeing scenes with the girl on the cover of the show hanging out with this dude from the Anbu Black Ops, I guess. The girl is also named Kotu, and she refers to the masked man as sensei, showing that they have a teacher/student relationship. The scene with this Koto shows a much different world though, with a lot of crazy interdimensional looking organization run by a galactic government. And I don't know if that accurately describes it, but when I watched it, that was the vibe I was getting. And either way, it shows she's in a completely different place than both the Looking Glass world and the normal world the family was in before. The Koto on the cover seems to be in a world where everything is very strictly controlled and in order, while the monk took his family into a more sporadic, carefree world. Okay, I know that's a lot to take in, but let me give your mind a break with today's video sponsor. Today's video sponsor is my own channel. Please just subscribe, what more must I do? Anyway, so back to the OG family down in the Looking Glass world we all know and love. After a while of things going great, Koto, the mom this time, not the girl on the cover, has a vision and decides that she needs to leave. So Koto and the monk leave the Looking Glass and their 3 children behind. The monk also gives his son, Yakushimaru, the name and duties of Myo. No, it's that word I can't say again. Which means that he has his powers and is now the ruler of the land of the Looking Glass. At this point, there's actually a time skip to where the children are all adults in the Looking Glass city. They meet up every now and then in this cool looking area to discuss important things. They refer to themselves as the Council of Three and make all the major decisions revolving around the city this way. They also talk about how they miss their parents and how they're totally coming back from getting cigarettes any day now. But it's around this time that Koto, the one from the cover this time, busts her way into the Looking Glass city, somehow claiming that she's looking for their parents too. And again, it might seem like I spoiled a lot, but I promise I didn't. This is where the anime starts. Everything before that was pretty much establishing the world and characters, but after this point, the anime really starts to pick up. And for a 10 episode anime, I honestly think it was surprisingly good. There isn't really really any serious fighting because the anime is mostly about the world and the story going on, but the story is really well written with lots of twists I didn't expect at all. But there is still some action. Like there's this one gamer girl who controls a giant mech robot with a video game controller, but she also lost the controller one time and had to run around the entire city making everyone search for it. Wow, she's just like me. In all seriousness though, one of the things that's really good about this anime is how well the characters are written. Again, it's only 10 episodes, so you gotta be reasonable here, but all the characters worked really well together, and unlike a lot of other anime, not a single character decided to randomly change how they think and act halfway through the show. The dynamics between the characters are also really well done and strengthen the believability of the characters, if that makes sense. While Kyousougiga is really good, and I think all of you should go and watch it, that doesn't mean the anime is without its flaws. And who better to critique an anime than a random guy on the internet, right? Subscribe. So while the beginning is well paced, it still is kind of all over the place, which can be a bit jarring, especially since it's the beginning. Like first you see this dude's story, and then you see this girl's story, and then this dude's story, and then this girl's story who also has the same name as the first girl, but they aren't the same, and none of the stories follow the same timeline, and by the time you get to the part in the anime where it really picks up and gets coherent, you're already halfway done, because it's only 10 episodes. Again, I don't want it to sound like the first few episodes are bad by any means, because they aren't at all. I just want to warn you all that the first few episodes may be a bit confusing to say the very least, but you'll enjoy the confusion, don't worry. The soundtrack also doesn't have any super noticeable tracks, like it's very well orchestrated and works really well with the world building and setting tones, but there aren't really any standout bangers that I want to show my friends in the car when they pass me the aux. I don't know if that's even a real complaint, since not only is music subjective, but also all the OSTs are perfect for what they're meant to do. It's just, I guess, since there aren't that many action-packed fight scenes, there aren't going to be any crazy hype action-packed tracks, which makes sense to me. But other than both of those very minor complaints, I literally have nothing. This anime caught me by surprise and handled a lot of the things that I normally critique very harshly really well. And while I've obviously had to be vague about certain aspects of the show to avoid spoiling anything major, as long as you aren't expecting something that this anime just isn't, then you'll enjoy it for sure. So yeah, the anime obviously isn't perfect, but before you guys decide not to watch the anime at all, please give me another chance. I promise I'm not imposter. I'll literally do a task in front of you and the green bar will go up. Just keep me up. While Kyousougiga may not be the shonen fighting anime that everyone always watches, it is a really good and well-written story about an undeniably interesting world. And yes, the story can be confusing, switching between so many different people's perspectives, especially so early on, but the anime perfectly shows you all the dots that you need to get interested and slowly connects them as the show goes on. Seeing all the interesting things in the Kodo on the cover of the show's world that she was interacting with and having to go through, being the complete contrast of the abandoned little homies in the perfect land of the Looking Glass, obviously raises so many questions, but ends up setting up perfect story points too. You shouldn't have to be an expert on storytelling to understand that the concept of bringing together two very interesting and very different worlds with some kind of conflict is a very hard premise to get wrong. And when the show perfectly executes the story progression, the character dynamics, and the scenery on top of using a really good premise, then you know the show did an amazing job and accomplished whatever it was trying to do. The fact that these worlds are so unique, even from an anime standpoint, is a big deal, and making things unique and interesting without adding millions of plot holes or sounding weird is a really hard task that Kyousougiga managed to do perfectly. And of course, with the art style being amazing and the colors being really pretty on top of all of that, it's really hard to stop watching once you get into it. Luckily, the anime, unlike a lot of others, actually did come up with a really good ending too. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, especially not the ending of the show, but trust me, the ending is insane and really tied together all of the loose ends. And if for some reason you've watched this far into the video and somehow still don't want to even give it a try, come on man, it's 10 episodes. Anyway, that's Kyousougiga, a show that at first I thought wasn't going to be that good, but was pleasantly surprised with, and I can confidently say it's the best 10 episode anime that I have ever seen. Well, the only other 10 episode anime I've ever seen is Big Order, and if you've seen that, you should know why that's not in the video. Hey,